Okay, so now we're in the situation where we have conducted a survey and we have distributed it to respondents with paper. We either mailed it to them or we gave it to them, they took it home, mailed it back, or any of those methods. So, and they filled it up and we have them in front of us in a stack of paper. And we need to make sense of this, right? We need to start analyzing, because at the end of the day, we want to know how many disagree with this statement, how many agree with that statement, what is the sense of the course, right? What is the average GPA for all respondents? What is the age? Is there a relationship between age and whether they thought they were good at math? Is there a relationship between gender and whether they like statistics or so forth? Anyway, depends on our research question, but we need to put all this in a spreadsheet to be able to analyze them. All right, so what do we do when we have a stack of paper surveys that have been completed? Well, there are 5 steps, and we're going to go over each of them, and we're going to use Google Sheets for that. Anyway, the first step is for you to order the questionnaires. Right? You're going to put them in order, any order, and you're going to number them. Right? So I numbered this one. This is number 1. The next one is number 2. Let's say I ordered them, based on how they came in, right? Any type of order, but order them and number them in some type of sequence. In some cases, it will make sense to order them if it's a class, if it's 2 courses that you're taking, or if it's 3 different strata that you had taken the survey, you would all order them by that. In this case, just numerically, and I numbered each of them. The reason why we would number each of them is so that we can go back to them if we have any questions. Okay, the next step after you have ordered them and numbered them, it's to create variables out of each question. Okay, we have to create the variables out of each question. So for this, we are going to go to our Google Drive, and we're going to create a new document. We're going to start a new data set here, and we're going to create a spreadsheet with them. Okay. So this is a brand new spreadsheet. It's clean. We're going to name that class exercise. Okay. Now, when we remember the one we saw from the previous survey, we had the variable names written here. Like each question was, right, a column, and each row was a respondent, right? All the responses for each respondent, for each survey questionnaire was a row. Okay, so now we have to make each question, right, a variable. Now, the first one, and this is good practice, is to number. The first variable is not even a question, it's just the number of survey, right? And we will put it there. So we will go to here, and the first variable is going to be number. And this is the questionnaire number, okay? So it'll be 1 if we're talking about this respondent, right? It will 2 if it's a questionnaire for the next respondent, and so forth. The next question, or the next variable, is going to be a variable that represents the answer for this question. I like statistics. Now we can write the whole question there, but it's probably not a good idea because it will make it make it a little bit too long. So maybe we'll put like stats, right? It's better to have variable names that are no longer than 10 characters. So like stats, that's what we're going to call that question. The second question is going to be, or the second variable is going to be the answer for this question. I was good at math in high school. Okay, so let's call that, I don't know, good math. The third question is going to be these course expectations, right? Now we're just creating variables for all these responses. How about this one? How many college level math courses have you taken in the past 5 years? Let's call that math courses. The next one, what is your GPA? Let's just call that GPA. The next question, gender, male, female, other. And the last one was age. Okay, so now, is there any other question here that we're forgetting? I think everything is in there, right? So we have the number, and we have a variable, a space for each of this. Okay, good. The fourth step is to create a code book. And the code book is, remember that after you are done creating your surveys, I mean your spreadsheet, you're not going to see the surveys again. So you may forget what this like stats was, right? And when you send this data set to somebody or you look at it years later, you're probably not going to have it in the same place as the stack of surveys. So it makes sense to create another document or make it part of this document what each of these means, right? And that is the code book. So I'm going to do that on a different sheet, and I'm going to add sheet here, and I'm going to call this sheet code book. Every survey data set has a code book, and the code book tells you what each variable is. Okay, and this sheet one, we're going to call it the data. Okay, so for example, this variable number, right? What is it? So in the code book, we're going to have the variable name and the label for that variable. And in some cases, the values, okay? So the variable name is number. What is the label? And the label is a little description of what that variable is. So what would we call that? This is the respondent number. On questionnaire. So now that we know that that variable is just the respondent number on the questionnaire, and you may want to check the spelling on that. And what are the values of that? From 1 to 10, right? Because there's 10 questionnaires. All right, that's what a codebook would tell us, right? So when we see that the variable number and we go to the codebook, we know exactly what that variable is about. Like stats, what is that? The variable like stats, what is a little description to that is, so answer to question I like statistics, right? And the values for that are strongly agree, agree, strongly disagree. Oh, I'm sorry, disagree first, and strongly disagree, right? Those are the values for that. The next question, good math, what is that? This is an answer to the question, I was good at math in high school. And the values are the same, right? Strongly agree, agree, strongly disagree, and so forth. So what we would be doing is, right, doing this for each of the variables, putting what they are, right, a short description of them, and a description of all the values that can go there. All right, that's it. That's our entire questionnaire. Okay, good. Now, the next step, now that we have all the variables ready to go, is to actually transcribe the data from the paper surveys into our data set. Now, we will start with survey number one. Number one, what was the response for that person? Like stats. Number one left it blank. So we will leave it blank, right? For the second question, I was good at math in high school. Not sure. Okay, well, we forgot about that value. Now, let me talk about some other tool here that can make it easier for us to put some responses. And that is a data validation tool, okay? Because let's say, like in the other survey, if you write this, let's say not sure, and you have hundreds of surveys, right? And you have a typo there, right? Let's say you meant to write agree, but you had a typo. And then on the other one, you had not sure and then a space, right? When you're analyzing this, the software is going to count this not sure as a different than that one. That's a different value because this one has a space and that one doesn't. This one has a typo, right? So you're going to have sort of a mess, and everybody makes mistakes when you're transcribing. And if you're having 100, 200 surveys and you don't know where the mistake is, it's going to take you hours to go and find and clean it all up again. And when you have hundreds of variables and thousands of responses, that is not a good idea. So let's talk about data validation. We can tell this spreadsheet to only accept certain values here, right? Certain values in here. What values do we want it to accept? Strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree, not sure, right? So how do we do that? All right, for that, we're going to create another sheet and we're going to call it data validation. Oh, okay. All right, this is how data validation works. You go to data, and there is a little button there called data validation. And here you're going to tell the spreadsheet, okay, right now we only have this one, right? But I want to validate all the values from here to number 15, right? If we have 15 respondents, 15 responses. Okay. Okay, so now that is going to be validated. Now, what values do you want? Now you can say any value in some place, or I can tell you the values. Let's say I am going to give you those values in a list, the list of values that I would want you to accept in that one. Okay? And I want you to give me those values in the cell when I'm inputting the data. Okay. Okay. So now, what are those values that we're going to accept there? I'm going to click out of that for a second. And the values here for questions 1 and 2, right, are strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree, not sure. And then I'm going to create one for missing, right? If the respondent didn't put anything, it's missing value. Okay, so these are the only ones that I want to accept for that question. So if I go to data and I select this, and I say, I want you to validate the values that you put there. Now you can say, I want only number, only text, only date, a list of items. Or here, the first one is, I'm going to give you the list of values I want you to accept there. Okay, then it's going to ask you, where is that list? When we're there, when we click there and go to data validation, we're going to tell Google Sheets, this is the validation. These are the values, right? From data validation, from that sheet, these are the values, and click OK. And then save. Now, when we go back to data and we go back to this variable, we see that if we want to put a value there, let's say an F, and we click, it's going to tell us, no, that's invalid, right? So we can just drop down and say, oh, it's a strongly agree, or not sure, or missing. And if we make a mistake, it's going to give us an error sign. Or we can ask, even in these data validation tools, we can ask, just reject the input. If it's wrong, just reject it. Don't show me a warning, just reject it altogether. So next time, if I want to put an R, let's say, it's going to tell me, no, you can't. You can't put any value. It has to be one of those from this list. So now that we have that, we can copy that to the next variable because it's the same type of variables, right? It's the same type values that we're accepting. For expectations, it's open. We don't need to validate it. For math courses, it's open. We don't need to validate it. For GPA, it's open. For gender, we may want to validate it, right? So let's say we're going to validate, but what are the values first? This will be male, female, other. So those are the 3 values. Now, when we go back again, this is what we want to validate here. We go to data validation, right? From G2 to G15, it's done. Select from a range. Where is this range? We go to data validation here, and it's those 3. And we click OK. And we're just going to reject any bad input, save. Now, before we go back, let's do the age to 18 to 24, or to 25, 26 to 32, 33 to 39, 40 plus. Okay. Now here, when we go to age, we go to data validation, reject the bad output, and I want you to, select values from this list. Actually, we forgot the missing right there. So I'm gonna click OK and save. Whatever we put here, those are the only values that they're going to accept. Okay, so when we go to data, it's only going to accept those ones. Now we're ready for survey number 1. Okay, I like statistics. That's a missing. So we go to our I like statistics, missing. For good at math, what did they answer? Not sure. So we pick not sure. For expectations, they wrote none. For math courses, they wrote 1. For GPA 2.3, male. GPA 2.3. For gender, male. And for age, they didn't answer. So we would put missing. Right? And that's the first respondent. Then we would move to the next respondent. Right? Now for this one, they said I like statistics, disagree, and disagree for those two. Learn how to present data. So if we go to this, so that's number 2. They disagreed, that they didn't like, so they didn't like, and they were not good at math. Learn how to present data. No courses, 3.8, female. So that's a 0, 3.8, female. And for age, they put 2. So what do we do? Now, when you have this, this happen, when they fill up 2, when it's wrongly, answered, you have 2 choices. You can either count it as missing, or you can create another value that is called field wrong, right? In this case, I'm just gonna go as missing. They didn't provide a correct answer, so it's missing, okay? So that's respondent number 2, and you would go and do the same for every respondent, right? Respondent 3 had another disagree. Now the thing is, it gets pretty simple now, right? Because of this data validation tool. Okay, so that's how you would go about creating your data set from paper surveys. You would number them, you would create your variables, you would create your code book, and you would input the data onto the spreadsheet.